Welcome to the Reduce Cyber Risk Podcast, where we provide you the training and tools you need for your cybersecurity career. Hi, my name is Shon Gerber, and I'm your host for this action-packed, informative podcast. Join me each week as I provide you the information you need to grow your cybersecurity knowledge while taking practical and actionable steps to protect your business from the evil hacker horde. All right, let's get going. Hey y'all, this is Shon Gerber with Reduce Cyber Risk, and this is February 14th, 2019, episode 24. All right, today's topic on our podcast, we've got a lot of great stuff that's in the news, especially as it relates to you dealing with cybersecurity as a professional and dealing with it if you are in the business sector, along with some cybersecurity training that's around cyber awareness training part 2 or part 2, depends on where you're from. Well, in the cybersecurity news, we've got the key things. There's about 4 different topics I'm going to cover today, and one of them is going to be about creating the cybersecurity dream team. And this comes out of dark reading, and the purpose of it is that if you're a CISO or a Chief Information Security Officer, how should you create the quote-unquote dream team to make your security program as good as it possibly can be? And so, therefore, they have some 5 wonderful tips that you can put in place to make that quote-unquote dream team. Now, again, 5 tips on a blog post. That it's great, but there's lots of opportunities around that as well. So there's some things we need to kind of cover to get you in the mood of things. But the first thing that comes out of it, cybersecurity teams typically come from your traditional IT folks. That's typically where they come from, especially in the past. They've been an IT person has maybe been a part of your server team, part of your infrastructure team, and they end up becoming part of the cybersecurity path for your organization. Well, there's some key things that CISOs or Chief Information Security Officers should consider as they are looking at building out this dream team. And the reason that it worked fine in the past, well, it could sort of work fine, was the fact that the threats were much less. The scope was pretty limited to a data center, and they didn't have the complexities that we have today. Well, because of that and all the different changes that are occurring, these are the things that you have to be aware of, especially as a Chief Information Security Officer. So we are going to talk about the 5 things you need to do to be a successful CISO and build out this dream team for your organization. The first one is to take talent inventory. Well, what does that mean? Well, bottom line is you got to see who's in your stable. Who do you have that has any capability within your organization that you can groom to be a security professional within your company? And basically, you just need to understand what are their capabilities. Now, as we talk about it from a security standpoint, you're going to find out more and more, especially as it deals with your CISSP or any other security certifications you may take. The certification is great, and that's great book knowledge, but the practical sense of it, it takes a little bit more than just understanding the little ones and zeros that go along with it. And so you need to understand the interpersonal skills that go along with having individuals working for you in the cybersecurity space. So that just kind of comes into, do you have people that can actually talk to senior leaders? Do you have people that can utilize lingo that is not real cyber savvy? And so those are things you're going to have to understand when you look at your overall talent. Now, if you're not going to hire from the outside, you need to decide, well, okay, then can I groom them from up internally? And so that's just something you need to consider. Number 2, hire top talent or outsource top talent. This kind of goes into number 1. So if you don't feel like your stable's very flush, and maybe you have, instead of some thoroughbreds, you got a few donkeys, which isn't bad. Donkeys can become thoroughbreds. Well, maybe not, but maybe in a perfect world they can with a little pixie dust. But the point of it is that you need to look at what is your talent, and if you don't have it, you need to go hire it. Now, I say this, you need to consider yourself, depending on what the risk tolerance is for your company, what are you going to do? Now, there's a couple different options you can go out and do. One is you can hire the talent. So you go out, and if you're looking for a top senior executive within your company, just get ready to pay some big money potentially, right? You're looking on the upwards of starting's 150 with plus bonus. Typically, they've run about 250 with bonus. I've seen them as high as 450 with bonus. So those are different options that'll be available from buying the resource. And then understand, if you do hire a CISO, you may have them for 2-3 years tops, and then they will probably move on. The other thing is outsource the talent. Now, you can get this from various avenues, but a virtual CISO, a virtual security officer, is a good way of doing it. Now, you can get a virtual person in a lot of different ways. Security architects are virtual, and I was really surprised that virtual or at architects are actually in some cases harder to fill than this chief information security officer, mainly because they can provide you a little bit more value, and they're usually a little bit more reasonable in price. But something to consider with that. So you need to decide, do you want to hire it or do you want to outsource it if you can't groom it from within? You need company buy-in, and this comes into the board, they come into the senior executives. You need to have company buy-in on what you're trying to accomplish, and this does include the board. The board has to be involved with these decisions and what's going on. And if they don't, well, then that would be bad. And I did in my podcast last week, I kind of talked about the board and how the board is important in this. And in many companies, they don't really understand. The board isn't that involved. They end up having more and more issues. Gartner's is saying that 95% of security issues is human error. And so therefore, you've got to understand that if that's the case, your board has to be involved in what it's going to take from your company and how to manage that risk. You also need to be proactive and prioritize accordingly. You need to look at that from a standpoint of what is best for your organization and how do you deal with it. And then lastly, you need to understand and utilize new technologies. Artificial intelligence is an important factor, or machine learning, but it isn't the panacea. So can you use that to augment what you currently have in place? That's a very possibility, right? And back to number 4 about being proactive. You need to be proactive with what is your risks and what are you trying to accomplish, and then prioritize them, because we can't get them all done in a year. So decide what is the biggest rocks that you want to start lifting now and the ones that you can make movement on, and focus on those. So between number 1 is take talent inventory, 2 is hire top talent, 3 is company buy-in, number 4 is be proactive and prioritize accordingly. And 5 is utilize new technologies such as AI or whatever else may be out there for you. All right, so that is this building your cybersecurity dream team. Now, the next news item is a VFE email service breach. Okay, it is dead on arrival. They are toast. Basically, what happened was somebody hacked into the VFE, and it's an email service that started back in 2001. And they hacked in, and there was no ransom or anything, and they decided to just pull out and drop little Molotov cocktails all over their servers. Not physically, no, but they nuked it. They basically turned around and they were formatting everything. They deleted all their data, and they were actually in the process of formatting their backup servers when they got caught. Now, they got caught, but what does that mean? So they basically destroyed everything for the company, which if you're trying to be in business to make money, that's not a good thing. They said that the IP address came from Bulgaria. So whether it was Bulgaria or whether somebody else was using that IP address as a launching off and targeting point, who knows? The FBI will figure that out. But bottom line is they noticed the issue on February 11th, and then that's when everything started going haywire. There's a quote, and then we're going to give a little commentary around this. Most likely used a virtual machine. This is from one of the individuals that's involved in this. Most likely used a virtual machine and multiple means of access into VFE email. And then there was a little bit more in their commentary. And then the next thing is no method of protection such as two-factor authentication would have protected VFE email from the intrusion. That's a pretty broad brush statement. And yeah, multi-factor in of itself, would have that protected the intrusion? Who knows, right? But realistically, is if you figure out you've got a problem on February 11th and your systems are getting nuked on February 11th, that's not a good place to be. So obviously they were in the environment for a period of time. Now, I say that because you know what? Working from the hacking standpoint, that's exactly what we used to do, and people wouldn't even know we were there till after the fact. So yeah, is it one of those things where you got to be very careful what you say? It's also got to be, did they have all the mechanisms in place to protect their company? That's where the finding will come out of it. I don't think we'll ever know. But will multi-factor help? Yeah, it would have helped. Would it have stopped it? It's hard to say. but it would have helped. And then what they're saying is that they probably didn't have it in place when they say no protection such as multi-factor would have done it. So something kind of interesting in that whole discussion around VFE email service. It's pretty sad. It's unfortunate that it happens. And the sad part is there was no ransom. They just went and decided to start erasing things, which is really kind of vindictive and bad. Other part of cybersecurity news is a federal data privacy reform. Okay, well, what is this? They said, do you expect to see it this year in 2019? Well, you got Chinese cyber law. You've got the cyber law that's occurring in other parts of Asia. You've got one in Spain. Pretty much all 50 states have some level of data breach. But is the U.S. federal government, and they got GDPR, U.S. federal government going to have a data privacy reform? Probably not. Not at least this year. And we're going to talk about it with Paul Rosenzweig. We're not going to talk to him, but Paul Rosenzweig, I probably just butchered his name. He's a senior fellow of cybersecurity and national security at the R Street Institute. So he's got a big title. He's probably got a cranium the size of a watermelon compared to my pea-sized little brain. And what he's saying is that not going to happen probably. Now, the recent announcement that we had of 700 million creds that were found, like 1 billion creds. All of those are not enough, right? The one big thing that he's talking about that's the reason that it's probably not happening. One is, well, there's actually a couple different reasons, but one of the main reasons is that technology literacy. Now, what does that mean? Most people that provide some level of political aspects around what this whole space do not totally understand technology, and therefore they don't really understand what they're trying to sign up for or trying to protect us from. And that goes without saying. I mean, I've been in IT for a few years, and I'm clueless on so much that goes on. I have absolutely no idea. And trying to understand it can be a bit of a challenge. So that's why you got to surround yourself with people that are way smarter than you are. That's the one thing that I would say that he says that they're having a challenge with is technology literacy. Now, in the event of Shon Gerber, who is Reduce Cyber Risk, I have a literacy problem in general, period. I can't speak the English language very well, and so therefore I struggle in quite many situations. The GDPR, they talked about in there where they need something like GDPR in the fact that there was 59,000 notices just in 2018, because it came in active in May of last year. There was 59,000 breaches notices. There was 91 fines that were paid out, or that were paid or forced on. So 91 out of 59,000 breach notices. Privacy is only 15% of concern of voters, and so therefore that is why he says most politicians don't want to mess with it, is just because there's so few people that are really concerned about it. I mean, when you've got Facebook and you've got your Googles, they really aren't that worried about privacy. So that's the part about the federal data privacy reform. All right, my last one is around ransomware attacks and nation states. So one of the things, this came out from Kevin Townsend of Security Week, and he mentioned that they're seeing now that nation states are getting more involved potentially with ransomware attacks. Well, why is that? It always comes down to one thing: show me the money. When it came to ransomware is extremely lucrative, and the margins are very, very high. And how is that the case? Well, Recorded Future, which is an intelligence gathering company, and the stats are on my slides that you can either see at Reduce Cyber Risk, or you can see them in other locations. It's 2017, there were 635 ransomware attacks. Okay, in 2018, now these are reported, there were 1,105. But since January, the end of January, that was another month, another 360, well, no, I can't do math in public, 58, right? Yeah, 358 new instances just in January of 2018 or 2019. And what they're saying is that people are migrating away, these attackers are migrating away from individuals and going to businesses. They're focusing on the business and how to hack the business and how to extort the business for money. Gand Crab, I don't know who thinks of these names, but obviously it's unique. I don't understand why or what, but yeah. So there was $300 million. Okay, this is the part that blows my mind, and this is why I'm saying the margins are high. just in a few months of when the ransomware GAN crab came out and hit the market. And this is also BitTorrent. No, it's in the article of who actually has it. It's not BitLocker, but bottom line is there is the key to be able to get to unlock your systems, and the AV company has this ability to do it. The interesting part, though, is in just a few months, this thing is garnered over $300 million in ransom. Now, how they came to that number, I don't know, but $300 million in the past few months. So I don't know how much developers cost. Well, I have an idea, right? They're not that expensive. They're expensive, but they're not that expensive. United States, a good developer is about $170 an hour. In other parts of the world, it goes from 50 to, I don't know, 45. Bottom line is that, so the margins, really, really good. And you got to build the infrastructure behind that, but the margins are really good. What they're expecting is North Korea is using it to generate funds and as a precursor to an attack tool, some way they can use it kind of as a dry run on making an attack. And so therefore, that's why they think that these are happening. One, to create cash, and two, as a test bed. Use the world as your test bed for a cybersecurity event. They do believe that this all came from WannaCry as well in the Lazarus group. So the bottom line is that the Koreans are doing it. They're not real sure yet if the Iranians are doing it, but they feel very confident. Well, they know. Basically, he says without a shadow of a doubt that WannaCry comes from the Koreans. The one thing that came out of the discussion, this came again from Recorded Future, and what their findings are about ransomware is that many people believe the ransomware piece is dwindling, right? Well, from a consumer standpoint, it might be getting less. However, the ransomware attacks on businesses is going up, and it's obvious because there's just lots of money. The other thing I'll say for most cases in businesses, guess what? They got old stuff, and their old stuff isn't always patched as well as it possibly should. So therefore, they are a prime target for ransomware type attacks. All right, these are the references that you can find. They'll be on Reduce Cyber Risk. And then also, that's Security Week, Dark Reading, and the Hacker News, and finally, Security Ledger. All right, let's move on to our training. Cyber Awareness Training Part 2, or Part 2. If you're French, yes, I took French in college, and that's all I know is do and we. I think that's about it. Right. So I didn't do well in college. All right. So Cyber Awareness Training Part 2. This is part of our CISSP supplement training that's available. You can get at reducecyberrisk.com. And it's a great stuff that's out there. We put this in regards to our CISSP training that I have available for individuals. But even if you're not taking the CISSP, this training is extremely valuable for you if you have any level of responsibility for cybersecurity within your organization. So again, let's move on. Cyber Awareness Training Part 2. Now, we talked about in the first part one, how do you talk to people? You got one-on-one discussions, you've got webinars and so forth. Well, here's we're going to get into this. This is face-to-face discussions with people. And it comes down to, how do you do that? Well, you can do this in a couple different ways. One, you can have lunch and learns in place. You can set those up. You can actually meet with individuals individually. What I'd recommend is you kind of look at some sort of lunch and learn is a really good way of doing that. And that way you kind of get a group together. You do it maybe once a month, and you do some level of cyber awareness training for people who want to attend. It does take a lot of coordination and takes a lot of time to do these things. However, it's a great way to get you, to build the rapport with people and to help people out. You can also do that when you roll out some training within your environment. If you have some level of training around maybe password vaults. A good example is that you may say, instead of having your people store their passwords on a Excel spreadsheet, you do open up a password vault for people and give them the training around how to do that. A good face-to-face discussion and lunch and learns are real helpful in that regard. And that's actually something I want to try to do. I want to do at the end of 2019. Webinars, there's online options that are available in webinars, and you can go to those and set those up. Those are easy peasy. If you have your own business, you can focus on products. There's lead pages and so forth that are available for you, but there's lots of online options to set up webinars. And so that you just need to find them if you can utilize a free option. The free options aren't tailored as much, and you may lose some potential information, may be lost. But bottom line is it allows you to provide some level of training. The other thing about this is that it does provide a some regulatory requirement checkbox that you may have to go through. So what I say with that is that in many cases, if you are a cybersecurity professional and you have some regulatory requirements around it, this will help fill that security awareness training that you may need. Consultations. Now, these you can get paid resources to help you, assist you in this process as well. They provide a wealth of experience, and they can give you that information that you may need. You can go ahead and contract them. You can find them on Udemy, or I shouldn't say on Udemy, but on Upwork as well. So there are paid consultants out there that could provide you the level of expertise and experience that you may want in a specific one-on-one discussion with your people. So the consultations is a way to have that happen. But they can be kind of expensive depending upon your need and your desires. Anywhere from $300 to $350 an hour is what I would expect for an individual if worth their salt. Now, you can get somebody cheaper than that, maybe $50 to $100 an hour. If you just want basic security awareness training, you can get them cheaper than that. So you just got to look at what is the best solution for your company. The high end, the $300 to $350, that is for a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer. But based on who you're talking to, you may, if you want some education specifically to your board, you may want someone with, I say this loosely because I definitely don't fall into this boat, but you may want someone with a little more polish to help you out in that regard. So something just to consider if you're looking at a security consultant. Talked about lunch and learns. These are great for one to many, or one to few, one to many in some respects, way more than one-on-one. They are usually in a more intimate setting, such as like after lunch, that kind of thing. And attendance can be small to very sporadic. So I would recommend that if you do utilize this, you look at a way to be able to get people to commit to coming to the lunch and learn. One, it just helps plan for your numbers, and it helps to kind of gauge what kind of one-on-one conversations you're going to have. Now, it can be hard to plan this engagement, so you need to make sure that you give yourself enough time for it as well. Brochures, pamphlets, and other gee-dunk, I like to call them. There's pros to this and there's cons to it. So now the pros around the brochures and the pamphlets and the gee-dunk, that's a military term we used to use a lot, is the gee-dunk. It's the stuff you give away. I'm sure it's not probably military. It's probably something else, but hey, the military just adopted it. It's usually the pros around this, it's a tactile response, which basically means it gives you something in your hand. Your greedy little mitts get something to be put in there that helps fulfill that need that they may have. That's usually good. Some people like to have something in their hands that helps them kind of learn better. And so this can be USB sticks, CDs, could be a pamphlet, just a piece of paper, but something that they would actually physically have. There are incentives. You can put incentives around finding the USB stick. So you play like Easter eggs, and you drop these USB sticks around your campus, around your facility, and if people report them to you, they get to keep the USB stick. You wipe it and give it to them. There's other USB sticks that are there that have and typically what will happen is you'll leave these around. They'll have a little program in them that'll call home, and it'll say, well, hey, this is part of a security awareness training. To unlock it, take it to your security people. So something like that we don't train people to go, hey, a USB stick. And the purpose behind that is to teach them that if you find a USB stick sitting on the ground, don't plug it into your computer, right? That's just a really good example where somebody can say, oh, I'll plug that in. I did that all the time. And people would stick them in their computers, and then I would take over their computer. That's just bad. So don't do that. There's also additional resources for learning that you can find available that's within brochures. I know SANS has got some products that are available for people to use, but again, many companies out there, some of them can be very expensive, some of them can be very inexpensive. Just depends what the quality and how many you want. The cons, these are good production, and good productions are expensive. Bottom line of that. If you want something really good with a high glossy paper, that's a really good card stock, they're expensive. They're not cheap. And in many cases, at lots and lots of waste. Most people will look at this product, they'll think, oh, this is awesome, I love it, and then they'll throw it away. So the marginal benefit really is kind of negligible around the products. I will say the USB sticks do work well. That is an expensive option, though, because each of those sticks will end up costing you probably about $5 a piece, depending upon where you get them from. But that can work. We talked about options of professional brochures and pamphlets. You can make your own. Might be a little bit cheaper than actually buying them from someplace else. USB, DVD giveaways, we talked about that. DVDs, not so much anymore. That's most people don't even really use those at that much, but that's a possibility. Another one to think about is a fortune cookie. I've seen this where people will have a fortune cookie and they actually get something they can munch on. And then inside there is actually a little piece of paper that says security is your friend or something like that. So the goal is to try to drive home some level of information security awareness. Bottom line, when it comes to brochures and heavy, I'm not a huge fan. I really am not. But it depends on the marketing and the support. If you do have a good marketing team, or maybe you can do this stuff in-house, you can save yourself some money, and it is another avenue that works well. That's just my personal opinion. I have seen kind of limited results out of it, other than the USB sticks has been very successful in driving home some awareness, but it can get kind of expensive. Content reviews. Now, it's important to accomplish these at least every couple years to make sure that your content is fresh. Now, this could change because your threats will change on a weekly, sometimes daily basis. But wire frauds, we see a lot of those where social engineering occurs and people are trying to get in the middle of a wire transfer. And so these wire frauds are a new technique. Ransomware is another new technique that you're seeing out there in a routine basis. Well, as all of these things are new, but in the past, it used to be where it was USB drives or CDs. All of the stuff is changing, so you need to update your content at least about once every 2 years. And it keeps the information fresh and relevant for users. The population also has become better connected with the threat. In the past, it was like, yeah, ho-hum, it's not that big of a deal. I don't understand it. It's too complex. But now that everybody is connected, people understand the vernacular. They understand the lingo for the most part. And so therefore, it's important that you set up to get it abbreviated every couple years or content reviewed every couple years. To determine the effectiveness, you need to really consider what are your metrics and your measures based on your tools that you're using. Your click rate, on your phishing attacks, all of that stuff, you need to make sure that you determine the effectiveness of it. And this also provides leadership a snapshot into the organization as well. And it determines if the actual awareness effective or training is effective. So you really need to look at these different types of metrics, because in some cases I've seen click rates that go down, then all of a sudden they spike up, and you ask yourself, well, why did they spike up this last go around? Well, if you look at it, maybe your phishing attack was much more complex and it was harder for people to go through it, or maybe it teaches you a training gap that you may have right now in place that you need to address. So these are different things that you need to look at as around metrics. Now, I'm going to get into a couple different buckets around teaching and training employees, your family, and so forth. Now, when we're talking about teaching and training employees, what are you trying to teach and train your employees? Well, are you trying to do the whack-a-mole approach for having users as part of the solution, right? So what I mean by that is that if you go do a whack-a-mole where Billy Bob goes and does something, you teach that individual, that's not good. Or do you go out and teach your individual users and embed them into your training as they are part of the solution and not the problem? I've got many conversations that have occurred with leadership, and they go, well, yeah, these people, they always click on the links. They're not that smart, right? Somebody made that comment once I thought was interesting. Well, these people are very smart. People are super smart, right? The problem is, though, is maybe they're, one, not taught correctly. Two, maybe the language isn't in a term that they understand. And maybe they just need a little one-on-one coaching. And I don't mean in a bad way. I mean in a way that will help them better understand the content. How fast do your employees report a problem? I like to use the employees as a sensor. And what I mean by that is your employees are the ones that are working on a daily basis and they know what's going on. Well, train them to be the sensor. If something doesn't seem right, have them tell you, have them get a hold of you. Now, it could be just a fishing expedition and there might not be anything there. But at the end of the day, would you rather have that, or would you rather have something in your environment for a long period of time that's sucking all your data back and you could have done something about it? So train them to alert you on things. Again, though, this comes back to if they're frightened for losing their jobs, they're not going to alert you on stuff. They're just going to say they're going to avoid the security person at all costs. So you want to avoid the whole losing your job thing. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't build that into some sort of expectations around the job of going, if you see a threat, you are to say something. And then this person constantly clicks on links and is continuously getting infected. Well, then that's a different conversation. But most people don't do that. They really don't. Employees are your biggest liability and your most important asset. So again, they will be the first line of defense, or they'll open the door wide open and let people in. So this is why it's important that you train your employees. Now, I talk about cyber for families. One thing I want you to consider for your organization, and if you see me moving a bit, it's because my dog is with me and he likes to be rubbed. He likes to come up and he says, "Hey, rub me a little bit, Dad." So cyber for families, the thing I want you to consider around this is teaching your employees to teach their families. The thing is these people go home, and if you can teach your employees that how they need to protect their families, that's a huge win. It is a big win for you. So you need to train them to protect what is important to them, because realistically, your company isn't. They provides a paycheck to them, but at the end of the day, that is not as important to them as their families. So there's a quote that I like to throw out there, whether or not it's relevant here or not, but I like to throw it out. People don't care how much you know, but they need to know how much you care. And it's true, and there's other versions of that, but its bottom line is that people don't care about what you know. They care about if you care about them. So it's important for you to provide some level of training, even if it's just a little brochure that they can download and talk to their kids about. Provide family-based training around password vaults, credit freezes, social network training, and social engineering training. These topics can be huge wins for you in your security program if you can provide these. And they don't have to be complex. Basic things. Again, 3 bullets is really what people operate on a lot, is that if you can have 3 main points up to something, no more than 5, people will pay attention to it. And if you provide it, they'll use it. Again, they may only use 1%, but 1% is better than no percent, right? And that's good English there, no percent. Cybersecurity training for schools, giving back to the community. Now, if you as a security professional are probably listening to this, you can provide this back to the schools. The schools they're looking for this kind of information. It basically, go to your school, provide training courses for your school on cybersecurity, and you can put on webinars. You can talk to parents. I've done all of those things. They're really good things to help your communities and to help build camaraderie around the families in the community. The other thing is talk to the school leadership around cybersecurity. They don't usually get it. And so that's what you need to do to help build your brand. Education for kids, it provides knowledge for the next generation of cybersecurity professionals. I highly recommend that if you can do something like that, it's really cool. The challenge I've run into is that they want you to put together a whole program and then they want you to teach it. I got a full-time job. I can't teach it. But you can put together stuff for the teachers and then provide some training for the teachers so the teachers to actually educate the kids on. That's a really good resource. And I highly recommend, with all these cybersecurity people that are needed, people are learning. Well, if you're learning, why not use that learning that you're garnering, okay, big word, and turn around and be able to teach other people? Because I'll tell you this, you don't know the information until you start to teach it. That's when you really know it. And then, or you highlight the fact that you really don't know it, and then you go, this guy doesn't know what the heck he's talking about, or gal. So that's probably what you're all thinking about my podcast, but I do know it. At least if anything, I will baffle you with something, yes. You also count it for CPE credits. If you are working on your CISSP or on any other security program, you will do this and you can create CPE or continuing professional education credits. ISC Squared's got this as well. Now, ISC Squared, that's the certifying body for the CISSP. They actually have a site called safeandsecureonline.org. That's a great place for you to be able to go, and talks about what kind of products you can give to students and to schools. So it's really cool. The other thing is fulfillment. It's a really good idea. I said before, I've done it numerous times. It's a great way to help people. And when it comes to cyber stuff, they don't know it. And anybody who has that mantra and has that capability, they just want it. They want that information. So it's important to do, especially if you're a security person, to give back to the community. And this is a good way you can do that. All right, so here's some of the references from both. I used the ISC Squared CISSP training manual because some of the content that was in here was directly out of my CISSP course, but also some other stuff that I put in through years of experience. And also Safe and Secure cyberonline.org. All right, great references and great books and great content in that if you go to iscsquared.org. All right, so this is all I have for cyber awareness training. Again, this is the ongoing stuff that I have available as a CISSP supplement training. It's available for people who subscribe to Reduce Cyber Risk. So go on there and sign up. You can get on my email list, and by doing so, you will get access to some of the free content that I have, but also the bonus content that I've only provide for people that are on my email distribution list. And it's awesome stuff. And there'll be a lot of stuff that may come available for the general public, especially in these CISSP supplements, that'll be available. But if you're on my distribution list, you will get access to all of my supplemental stuff, not just the stuff that's on my website. So we'll give you access to everything. So go to Reduce Cyber Risk. There's multiple areas you can sign up for that you can get access to my email list, and then sign up and get on the distribution list. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, my name is Shon Gerber with Reduce Cyber Risk, and hope you enjoyed this training. Have a great day. Catch you on the flip side. See ya.